I think that gentrification is something that is inevitable. It happens, it's happening all over the world. It's happening in smaller cities, towns. But the way it's happening is what I have a problem with right now. People being displaced. When I think of gentrification, I think about displacement. And displacement is natural, but it needs to happen in a more responsible manner. When I hear racism, I think of so many things. Oh man, I think of racism because it happens every day on the streets of New York, in almost every town and city in America. I think that racism is very closely linked with gentrification. It's linked with classism, it's linked with privilege. I think that we can all agree that white privilege is a very real thing that exists. Now, what I think is that people need to start talking about it. People need to acknowledge that white privilege exists, and then they need to think about how to talk about race, keeping that aside. I'll give you an example. I live in Crown Heights in Brooklyn, and the West Indian Day Parade is a huge, massive celebration. And, I've been living in the neighborhood for about 4 years. I have friends who are West Indian, and I had a Jamaican flag because I love Jamaica, I love reggae, and I actually associate pretty closely with the culture. But I had a friend who's a white, straight man. He lives in Bushwick. He happened to come and visit me. And while we were walking around the parade, I handed him the flag. And he just freaked out. He said, I can't wave this flag around. I'm white. I'll get attacked. I can't do this. This is wrong. And his girlfriend, who's also white, she started waving the flag around, and he just freaked out on her, and he said, we're white. We can't do this. This is wrong. It's unethical. But she walked around the parade waving this flag, and just about every Jamaican there high-fived her and started dancing around with her. And I think that is what needs to happen. You need to accept your privilege. You need to get over your white guilt, and then you need to stop othering yourself and try to actually connect with the community. And I think that's the only way you can sort of overcome not just gentrification, but racism as well. What do I think when I hear white supremacy? I think of Donald Trump. I think of all of his insane supporters. I think about the very, very scary, insecure, broken state of America right now, and I worry about the future. Who's the criminal when it comes to gentrification? The landlords, the evil landlords who are just in it to make money, who are turning off hot water supply and heat to drive low-income families out, who are breaking down and renovating houses and increasing the rent by, I don't even know, in so many illegal ways. I have a problem with the landlords, the evil landlords of Brooklyn. I'm sure there's epic movies that are being made about it. I've lived in Crown Heights for 4 years, and I live in a part of Crown Heights on Kingston, where on one side is the Lubavitch Hasidic community, and the other side is a massive West Indian community. And back in the day, there were riots. There was a lot of racial and class-based tension between the two communities. And I think because I spend a lot of time talking to people who've actually grown up in the neighborhood, I'm very aware of the tension that still continues to exist, especially when you consider that most of Crown Heights is actually owned by Hasidic landlords who live on the other side in a very sort of cut-off, segregated section of the neighborhood. As I mentioned, I've lived in Crown Heights for 4 years. When I first moved in, it was still considered the hood because I live near the Albany projects. And I remember walking through gang meetings. I remember that there were a whole lot of shootings, but I also remember that there was a really close-knit community that welcomed me. And I was just new in America. I just moved to this crazy big city, left my family and my home behind. So what I felt was just a lot of love, and I met a lot of people who were very welcoming. And it's all changed in the 4 years I've been there. And I now find myself starting to think like all those other people who are actually from there. My rent has gone up, and it's continuing to go up. I meet people who are new in my building who don't say hello, and my landlord is already texting me and emailing me and trying to find ways to basically get me into trouble and not renew my lease. So how long can I continue to live in my neighborhood? I would say maximum another 2 years, because I've been a model tenant. I pay my rent on time. But other than that, 2 years maybe. Honestly, when I first moved here, I wasn't really aware of the whole gentrification conversation. As I said, I moved into a pretty low income neighborhood. And at that point, there wasn't as much anger and insecurity as there is right now. And so I never really considered myself to be a gentrifier. I think more so because I made it a point to really embed myself in the culture and the community. I have a lot of friends. I talk to all the old ladies who go to church and the young kids who are playing. So I felt not like an outsider, but more like I'm part of the community. And so, no, I didn't consider myself a gentrifier, even though I'm very aware that I live in an apartment that has central heat, central AC, brand new, renovated, and I don't need to worry about hot water. So it's ironic because I am a gentrifier, but at the same time, I don't feel like one. Maybe because I took time out to sort of respect the place where I've come into. That's the other funny thing. Now I somewhat feel like I'm being gentrified. I was just telling someone a little earlier on this morning on my way to work. I met this new guy. I guess he's just moved into the neighborhood, and I said, "Hey, happy Friday. Pretty good weather," and he just ignored me. And this has been happening more and more. When you live in a neighborhood like Crown Heights where everyone's really friendly with each other, you start to say hello and make conversation. And I'm getting pretty used to people not responding to me. That's just one of the ways that a certain neighborhood and a certain community is changing. And also my rent is increasing by a crazy amount. So yeah, I guess I am now being gentrified.